these overnight success stories take time. So while I've been in business for 36 years and 1-800-GOT-JUNK is $700 million in revenue, and then we've got two other companies, Wow One Day Painting and Shack Shine, that are growing, it takes a long, long time and longer than most entrepreneurs think. But there's this pivotal sort of inflection point where sometimes things start to run and take off and your hard work pays off.
Welcome to $100 Million Blueprint. We're your hosts, Jonathan Ferrari and Neil Cuggy, the founders of Goodfood. Whether you're scaling your own business, leading a growing team, or just curious about what it takes to build something big, this podcast's for you.
In each episode, we sit down with the brightest minds in business to discuss the real secrets to scaling. No fluff, no corporate jargon, just actionable advice that works. We share lessons learned from being owners and co-owners in businesses valued over $290 million.
Today, we're diving deep with an incredible guest who's got a track record of growing a business from the ground up. This is $100 Million Blueprint. All right, welcome to the $100 Million Blueprint, the show where we go inside the minds of entrepreneurs who have scaled without selling out. We're not here for hype, hacks, or hustle culture. We're here for the real talk about how to grow with clarity, conviction, and a whole lot of guts. Today's guest is Brian, the founder of 1-800-GOT-JUNK, Wow One Day Painting, and Shack Shine. What started with a junk truck spotted at McDonald's became a $700 million franchise empire. If you think unsexy can't scale, think again. Let's dive in. Thanks for being with us, Brian.
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Neil. Honored to be here.
So we'd love to start with, I'm sure you've told it a million times, but the story of that drive-through at McDonald's. Tell us a little bit about where your entrepreneurial story started.
Yeah, it's a surprising moment in time for an entrepreneur to look back and go, wow, it was in a McDonald's drive-through of all places. I was in the drive-through. I had a beat-up old pickup truck that was in front of me in line. It said Mark's Hauling on the side. It was filled with junk. And I was at that time in my life contemplating my future. All my friends were going to college. I didn't have the money to get into college. I really just didn't think I had the brains to go to college, but I was thinking, what am I going to do? And I didn't want to be left out. So I talked my way into college and had to pay for it myself. And I was a high school dropout. So I was one course short from graduating high school. And I just didn't think school was for me as an entrepreneur, as an ADD type person. It never has been my jam. But there I was in the drive-thru. I'm like, okay, I see this truck. It's filled with junk. That's my ticket to pay for college. Go start my own junk removal business. And within a week, I took my life savings of about $1,000. I put $700 into a beat-up truck of my own. And I put some ads in the newspapers, the classified ads back when those existed, and started getting business. And within 2 weeks, I had a company that paid for itself and started to pay for my college education. But ironically, 3 years into my degree, I noticed I was really learning much more about business by doing it versus studying. And I said, I'm gonna do this full time. I'm having fun and I'm learning and making money. So I sat down with my father, who's a liver transplant surgeon, who's done more schooling than anyone I've ever met. And you can imagine the look on his face, like, what is going on? My oldest son is quitting school to become a full-time junk man. He didn't agree at the time. 15 years later, he gave me a pat on the back and told me how proud he was. But it just wasn't the type of education that I needed. So lastly, I'll say I dropped out of school, but I did not drop out of learning. I began learning just in a different way, meeting entrepreneurs, asking for help. And that drove me forward, and here we are today.
So Neil and I actually met working at RBC Capital Markets a few years after graduating from McGill. And I remember a very similar moment to what you just shared when I told my parents that I was going to leave this, the high-paying, obviously not easy job. Like it's a hard working environment. Secure paycheck, clear path to financial freedom at some point. And Neil, I don't know if you remember this story, but my parents turned to me and they were like, oh, really? Okay. So why don't we go for lunch with you and Neil and tell us a little bit more about your idea. And we went to this Chinese restaurant in Montreal for some dim sum. Do you remember that? and they kind of peppered us with questions of like, what are you thinking? Where's this thing going? And so it's always fun to hear similar stories, Brian. And so I guess my understanding from reading about your story is you kind of spent the next 10 years before you went into the franchise model. You spent the next 10 years building out your junk removal business before it became 1-800-GOT-JUNK. What were some of the big learnings? You just talked a little bit about how you kept learning along the way. What were some of the big learnings that you took away from that 10-year period?
Yeah, a whole ton of learning. I think first and foremost that these overnight success stories take time. So while I've been in business for 36 years and 1-800-GOT-JUNK is $700 million in revenue, and then we've got two other companies, Wow One Day Painting and Shack Shine, that are growing, it takes a long, long time and longer than most entrepreneurs think. But there's this pivotal sort of inflection point where sometimes things start to run and take off and your hard work pays off. The first 5 years in business, I decided I had the wrong team. I fired literally my entire team of 11 people. They say one bad apple spoils the whole bunch. I had what I thought were 9 bad apples. They weren't the right people for me. And I didn't even keep the 2 that might have been okay because I just thought, let's start with a clean slate. And I sat down with them and I said in a morning meeting, all 11 of them, that I'm sorry I've let you down. I didn't find the right people, treat them with the love and respect they needed, and wiped the slate clean and started again. And it taught me that you can only build a business based on the culture, the teamwork of the right people that you've got surrounding you, that you believe in them and they believe in you. And once I figured out the team, that made it a lot easier to work through the hard times, the ups and downs of growing a business. If I look today, we win so many awards for our culture, and the people that we've hired have been the real reason why that's been the case, preserving our culture, preserving our values. I think some of the other things I learned was it took me 8 years to get to $1 million in revenue. And that's a long time. And once I realized that I had something that I grew in Vancouver to $1 million, could I not grow it in every other city in North America to at least $1 million? Figure out how to systematize, how to scale the business. And I came across a book called The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber, which became, I see Neil nodding there, that became my Bible, if you will, my how-to manual of build the business out like a franchise. Franchises succeed because of the level of systematization that they have where anybody can repeat the winning formula. And once I found that winning formula, I said, wow, we look and feel like a franchise. Maybe that's the model. And following in the steps of Ray Kroc from McDonald's, I took the franchise model and went all in and started to really scale a business.
On the decision to go with the franchise model, what other companies were you modeling off of? Like obviously McDonald's, you're saying Ray Kroc, but what kind of inspiration were you drawing? Who were you talking to? How are you thinking about, what does a playbook look like that I can give to franchisees? Yeah, who were you admiring at the time and thinking about emulating?
It's an interesting question. I couldn't find a lot of franchisors at the time that I really admired. And franchising had a little bit of a slippery reputation to it at the time. And a lot of laws were being put in place to protect franchisees getting the wool pulled over their eyes, I guess, in an industry where a lot of franchisors were doing well and the franchisees weren't doing so well. So it wasn't that I was following anyone in particular. I just really liked the McDonald's model of take some great people who want to build a business, but they don't have the systems, the knowledge, or maybe the know-how or an idea that they want to grow and run with. And so not knowing other franchisors and not finding a lot out there that I admired got me to sort of create my own model. The first thing we did before actually recruiting a franchise partner was we changed the industry nomenclature from franchisee to franchise partner. I said, I want a franchise owner that is on board on our team that depends on us and we depend on them, and together it's a partnership. So it was a lot of little things that we started to change. I knew that I would never build a business that was sustainable and that would grow if I didn't have franchise partners who were successful. And so it really became studying a lot of franchise companies that were failing or struggling or had plenty of lawsuits that showed me that how could we make this model work? Now, today's a different story. There's plenty of great brands out there, but it was a different day back in the, let's see, the late 90s when I franchised.
Did you find differences in I'll call it hiring the franchise partner versus hiring corporate employees to help execute? Like, how were you thinking about in the early days keeping culture, which sounds super important today, and maybe was less important at the time or equally important? Not quite sure where you sat at the early days, but was there a different mentality or different things you were looking for and different relationship that you were thinking about, or is it like same kind of connection that I want with these franchise partners, but a different business relationship on paper?
What we looked for, and this became clearer over time, we learned what we were looking for and what we weren't looking for. And I'll talk about both. What we wanted was people who had leadership. And they could have been, the varsity captain on the rugby team. They could have been the head of their frat. They could have been running some political thing at university. They just had to show up as a leader and be able to lead people. They had to be tenacious and willing to push through the tough times. And they had to have clear goals that they believed in and wanted to make happen at all costs. What we started to realize, it was less about experience, what industry they'd been in. It was just that they had all the passion in the world for wanting to build their own business and to build it with someone versus building the business alone. What we weren't looking for, and we realized this over time because it would be trial and error to a certain degree, people who had MBAs, with all due respect to anybody that has an MBA, never had an MBA succeed as a franchise owner of ours. And we don't know 100% why, and we can sort of hypothesize, but all the MBAs we ever recruited didn't succeed. We think it's because they were very trained into a certain way of thinking and were too corporate, perhaps, and too linear in how they were raised from a business perspective. The other one, and this is a strange one, but fighter pilots. We went through a phase of a lot of our American franchise partners. They would leave the military, leave the Air Force. They'd go work for an airline. Many people wanted to start their own business, but we never had a pilot that was successful, and we had a ton of them. So two very strange ones. Why didn't they work? We think the pilots went through a situation where they were always told exactly what to do. You can't take risks as a pilot. You can't be like, hey, let's just be willing to fail and make a mistake here. People die. You must do it this way every single time. And we needed some nimbleness in our organization as franchise partners where your market will be different than all other markets. And there'll be some things you're going to have to figure out on the fly and experiment with. So we've got great franchise partners. Not all of them have been successful, and that's on us, who we picked, and we learn as we go. But we really, really have had a lot of fun building 3 amazing brands under that model.
That's amazing. I also relate to the piece of like knowing that you want to be an entrepreneur, knowing that you want to build something yourself that wouldn't exist without you. But not having that, the great idea or this, this problem that I want to go solve. And I think that's what the franchise partner model solves well, right? Like having that partnership and being able to coexist and learn from the franchisor. But it must have been incredibly difficult for you to gain credibility as a franchisor. So what did you do once you made the decision of, okay, I think this is a model that could really franchise itself well? What were some of the challenges you faced after that?
Or even with Shackshine too, sorry to jump in, but even with Shackshine more recently launching, like, is it a different challenge in doing that? And obviously you've many years of perfecting the go-to-market on the 1-800-GOT-JUNK side, but anything recent to change would be interesting.
Yeah, let me answer both of those. Actually, I'll answer the second part first. So I've got 3 children, college age, high school age. And for anyone that has kids, often if you've got multiple kids, they're similar, but they're still very different. And I found that with 3 brands, that's the case. Yeah, they're all home services. This is easy. We've done this before. Just because we've built 1-800-GOT-JUNK doesn't mean all the same things will work for Wow and Day or Shackshine. So there's been a lot of learning in that way, that they just aren't the same, and they need, first and foremost, the right leader leading that business separately than any of the other brands. We don't run them together. But going back to the early days, to Jonathan's point, what did we do in the beginning to prove credibility? It was really hard. It took 4 years of trying to sell franchises and not selling any. And when I found Paul Guy, who's our Toronto franchise partner, who now has about 100 million in system-wide sales across all the markets he's in, he started by taking a truck from Vancouver. He ran our Vancouver operation, and he drove his truck across Toronto to Toronto, 3,500 kilometers or whatever it is, a long ways, to start up in that market. And he had done it in Vancouver as my operations manager. Then he said, okay, I can do this in Toronto. I'm going to be the first franchise owner. If you remember, I said I did in 8 years, it took me to get to $1 million. He did it in 1 year. So he took our recipe, was able to do it faster. Then we were starting to build some momentum and some early day credibility. Others said, I want to be Paul Guy. I want to do what he's done in another city in Canada. When we started going into the US, we didn't have people that wanted to follow Paul Guy because they said, Paul Guy's in Canada. That's different. This is the United States. And with all due respect, there's some differences, but there's more similarities than differences. But people needed, when someone comes in as a franchise owner, they want to know this is proven. Otherwise, why not just go out and pull a Brian Scudamore and start it yourself? They want it to be proven. So the proven recipe was key. And it turned out it was a Canadian who ended up relocating to San Francisco, Tom Ritma. He knew about us and our credibility. He started in San Francisco. He hit a big home run, and then things started to skyrocket from there. But it's interesting. You know, I always reflect on this, that franchise partners are different than the entrepreneurs that the three of us are. And I don't mean that that's good nor bad. I just mean they're different. So one of my favorite entrepreneurs in the world is Shaquille O'Neal. And I got the great pleasure of spending some time with him in person on a couple of occasions and getting to know him. And what I loved about him is he said, listen, Brian, I don't need to be the guy building the race car. I just want to be the guy driving the race car. So he is a perfect franchise owner. He's gotten out there and bought franchise companies that he's bought multiples of, because he said, Brian, I can take everything I've learned from basketball, how to win, how to lead, how to build a team, how to follow a play. I can apply that to a franchise business. I'm not the idea guy. And he was right. And it inspired me to see that, like, someone who's worth hundreds of millions of dollars, mostly from business, not basketball, can inspire other franchise partners to do some pretty incredible things. You don't have to be the guy or the gal with the idea starting the business. You can be like Paul Guy and just be a better executor.
And I love to hear that there are franchise partners that have built their own $100 million blueprints within your ecosystem. Like that's the coolest thing.
Yeah, we've actually got one that has built two people actually. Tyler and Josh started in the trucks in Kansas City, and they said we can do better with this business than the owner who's running it. And they raised some money, bought the owner out, and today they're doing almost 200 million across their portfolio with Shack Shine and with 1-800-GOT-JUNK. And it's fascinating because when someone figures out the recipe, 1-800-GOT-JUNK, for example, or Shack Shine, and we go, here you go, now follow this, you find people like Tyler and Josh who go, but we can even do it better. We can dial it up and we can duplicate and do a bunch of these markets. And they're young guys who are just killing it. And they've now shared their ownership with other owners in different markets. So they'll take a market that might not have been doing well, like Reno, Nevada, and they take one of their corporate people and plug them in, and off they go, and they grow with their support, and now they're an owner and they're doing well. So nothing inspires me more or fires me up, I guess, than the concept of building entrepreneurs, inspiring them, giving them a platform, giving them some support to help them be successful in their own right.
It's amazing the ecosystem and community that you kind of get from touching all these different people and parts of the world. It's incredible, the feeling that comes back. And I just want to highlight a couple things that, in case the listener didn't really catch, like we're throwing around $100 million numbers pretty quickly already in the podcast, which is really exciting. But 8 years to $1 million, like that was one of the first 8 years of grinding to $1 million in Vancouver. Like that's a long time. And then you said 4 years, no franchise sales either, right? And in the business environment today, when you read, I don't know, TechCrunch or Wall Street Journal or CNBC or BNN or whatever news outlet, I think there's a perception of, if I'm not the idea guy, to your point on Shaq or gal, or I'm not at $10 million or $100 million in 3 years, I mean, I'm a failure. And it's like, it's not going to work, right? And if I haven't raised money at a valuation of 10 million or 100 million or $1 billion, like $1 billion gets thrown around in the business context today in a lot of private companies, that it's like, that's when it starts, right? That's the entry size. So I just want to make sure that we pause and reflect, because your career has been amazing and still has a lot to go. But a lot of people today, when they're coming out of school or thinking about quitting their job to start another business or whatever it is, they think they need to hit a home run right away, and they don't realize that it does take time. Like you're saying, it's decades of hard work and lots of hours and sacrifice, and it will pay off if you continue to kind of grind away. But just wanted to make sure that that context sits in, because it's pretty amazing to put in today's words.
You make good points. This is about the long game and thinking big in a long-term way. Anybody I know, and like the two of you, we've been so blessed with meeting so many mentors and entrepreneurs and hearing their stories. I have yet to meet someone that hit a home run right off the bat. I have also yet to meet somebody who has said this has been easy and that it didn't come without hardships and failures. And I think that in this Instagrammable world, where it's easy to capture a snapshot in time of someone celebrating a big moment, and they've come out of nowhere and it seems easy, but do you know their life story? Do you know what they've gone through and sacrificed to get to where they got to? If it was really just a grand slam home run, luck off the bat, to me, those things often fail. They're not sustainable because someone didn't have the skill and the tenacity to really take it next level. Look at Groupon, right? Someone hit a really early day grand slam. That thing grew so quick, and as fast as it grew, it just exploded, right? So entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart. And it's for people that want to think long term and can have the patience to endure. I'm sure you guys have told your story many times of how hard it must have been. And I don't know the story, but I can tell you, I know it's been hard, because you wouldn't be here today if it wasn't. There's times we almost give up. So a quick story, which I love. The phone number 1-800-GOT-JUNK. I'm wearing it on my hat, as you can see. I got the logo designed from a design firm before I got the actual phone number, because I'm just like, it is so hard to get this phone number. It seems almost impossible. I was trying to convince the person that had or find out who owned the phone number so I could convince them to give it to me, sell it to me, whatever it might be.
There was a government entity or something, right?
Yeah. I literally documented the number of calls and who I was calling and making to try and get in touch. I had 59 no's before the 60th call, where Michael in the phone room at the Department of Transportation of Idaho, who owned the number, said, "You know what? You can have it." He said, "It's a working number. It's a government number, but we don't use it that much. I don't know why it's important to you, but you've called me 3 times in the last 3 days. It's more important to you." He just gave me the number. I didn't buy it. I didn't give him a penny. I tried to get in touch with him a couple of days later to thank him and send him out for dinner, and he was no longer with the Department of Transportation. I have no idea what the story was there, but I got this phone number. And so all the times when we could have, as entrepreneurs, given up, but we choose not to because we see the vision and believe, those are the type of franchise owners we look for, as people that are like, it's going to get tough, and when it does, I'm going to do everything to push through to the other side.
For sure. And you'll be tested regularly. Regularly.
And you've got to enjoy it, right? Robert Herjavec, who's on Shark Tank, was Dragon's Den. He's become a great friend and mentor. And I remember once interviewing him for at one of our conferences. And I said, what's your advice for people weathering the storm, getting through the good times and the bad? And he's like, "Brian, we get to do this." He goes, as entrepreneurs, you choose to do this, and you've got to feel blessed that you actually get to do this every day. The good and the bad, you've got to like it both. And so for me, as an entrepreneur, when things are hard, I still go, oh man, this is exciting. How are we going to solve this? Of course I get frustrated. Of course I get deflated. Those things happen. But it's the challenge of pushing through and getting to a better place and improving your business. Yeah, Robert was right. We get to do this.
Absolutely. And problems are a sign of life, right? Like you want to be upgrading your problems on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis. Bigger problems means more opportunity, bigger impact. So definitely share that.
And you know what? I think it's even one of the biggest misconceptions, right? Like people think, oh, the more successful I am, the less problems I'm going to have, right? But to your point, Neil, like it's totally the opposite, right? Like the more successful you are, the bigger your problems, right? And like we're hoping to have the biggest, greatest quality problems we can possibly encounter.
I used to say, I hope one day I'll make $1 million mistake, and then I hope one day I'll make a $10 million mistake, and then I hope one day I'll make 100. And hopefully you don't it doesn't blow up the company or anything from those mistakes. But like if you can make a bigger mistake and survive through the other side, it's an expensive education, but it shows that you're progressing and growing.
I was in the Young Presidents Organization, YPO, for quite some time. And as a young entrepreneur in that organization, I think I was about 26 when I joined. And I would travel around to different cities, meet different YPOers, and many of them who'd built billion-dollar companies. And I asked them all the same question. Where's the easiest, where's the hardest part of the journey to $1 billion? And it surprised me, but it was always consistent. People would say, $1 million is the hardest because you're figuring out the idea, figuring out the way you operate and work and so on. 10 million gets a bit easier, but not a lot. 100 million starts to get quite a bit easier. And the easiest of all is $1 billion. And I'm like, man, that made me want to get to $1 billion even faster. But I have to say, as we approach $1 billion, especially with all three companies combined, those people are 100% right. I'd say the exact same thing, because then you have a team and the support. And when you make a $10 million mistake at $1 billion, it's not as significant. And you have a team there doing the work, taking on the learning, making sure it doesn't happen again. You've got better expertise than you could afford back in the $1 million days. So again, it's another reason to go stick with it. As long as you're the right person to build a business, right? Nobody should stick with a company if it's causing them so much stress because they can't figure it out. But when you do, it's pretty special stuff.
For sure. And one of the things I wanted to touch on, a lot of entrepreneurs, will start one business, they'll see some success, then they'll start to think, okay, what's next? Do I keep doubling down on this one business? Do I start another business? Sometimes it's out of the kind of ADHD brain that a lot of us entrepreneurs have, or some of it is out of opportunity and seeing, what the market could be. How did you think about, going from the 1-800-GOT-JUNK to the three businesses today and how they kind of interoperate? I think the first step was Wow Painting, and then Shack Shine. So was it, hey, I think the opportunity is well on its way for 1-800-GOT-JUNK, and now I can kind of shift towards other home services? Because you did say you think about them as separate businesses in a lot of ways, right? So how do you think about that?
Yeah, it took 22 years before we found the second business. And so I think in looking back, hindsight, it seemed smart, but it was just timing that we waited long enough to find another business, because I see people shift too quickly into starting a second, a fifth, a seventh business, and it can get out of hand. I'm a big believer in the whole philosophy, grow where you're planted. If you're in the coffee business like Starbucks, it didn't work when they tried to get into the furniture business. It didn't work when they tried to get into the ice cream business. There were plenty of things that were too different, but when they really stuck to their core, that has been wise and smart for them. Chip Wilson, a great Canadian entrepreneur, Lululemon, and a friend, he was in West Beach, which was sort of surfer wear, and he failed, but he didn't stray far from that. He still stayed in the garment business and went into another leisure business activity, yoga, and took all his learnings from a failed business and scaled an incredibly successful brand. So I think it's make sure that you're not getting the ADD, ADHD bug that we've got as entrepreneurs and exercising that into, I just need another business on board. The fastest way to $1 billion, I think, is sticking with one core business and expanding versus trying to get into other industries. So when I look at our space that we did get into, they are still home services. They are happy businesses that we've gone into where we've tried to add a level of service and experience to the customer that hasn't been done in that space. But you won't see us playing in non-home service spaces. It's just not, it's not our thing.
Despite not going outside of where you guys were planted, you still decided to run the businesses as separate operations and have separate teams and obviously separate brands as well, and go through that setup to attack those different verticals.
Yeah. It's been 10, 11 years since we started those other brands, 12 years maybe. But what it is that we have had learning and mistakes. We did try and run them more closely together. We did try and have sales overlap where someone that's using 1-800-GOT-JUNK, we'd then try and sell them on window cleaning and use our sister companies. And it just didn't work. And we tried so many different things. And the only route for us was separate brands, separate leaders. They can't be distractions to each other, and they're too different enough. Again, back to the analogy of kids, like my kids all go to different schools, different ages. They've got their own lives. They're trying to figure out, you can't have them all go through at different ages and different personalities, the same experiences in life. And the same holds true with businesses, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's so funny. Like we John and I are big fans of decentralization as well. And we were at a conference in March, and one of the breakout sessions was, I think it was like the strength of decentralization. So we're 12, 15 entrepreneurs in the room talking about some of the best practices. And we were about an hour into the conversation, and John looks at me and says, I think everyone's trying to convince each other to centralize things here and share the CRM and share the sales team and share the back office finance team and doing all these things.
I figured out I was in the wrong room.
It's so interesting to see. Like we're all like so focused on trying to like find these costs or overlap or like these intelligent things, but
it sounds
often
so good
doesn't
on
work.
paper, right?
Yeah.
It's you're like, oh, and there's going to be, we're going to share sales leads, we're going to share marketing teams, and it's going to be the same finance team. So like it sounds so good on paper, but to your point, Brian, once you actually try to bring it together, whatever you're saving from being able to leverage the same cost structure, you're losing from distractions, right? And losing from speed of execution, right? And focus.
Focus is everything. Like, again, you brought up, Neil, the ADHD, right? And the solve for that is hyperfocus, because otherwise it gets the best of us. And I think in any business and any person's role, when I know I perform best when I get rid of all the noise. If I do what I do best 90% of the day and focus on my unique abilities, like I'm loving life, people are enjoying working with me and everything works. And I get when you start off in the early days, you have to do it all. But the sooner we can focus our energies and our abilities, the better. Multitasking doesn't work in life, and I don't think it works in businesses. And we call each other on it as a leadership team all the time. Like you can tell someone's typing a note on their computer or checking into Facebook, whatever they're doing, and they didn't get your thought. And it's like, well, hold on. We've got to hold ourselves accountable to not multitasking in everything we do, including our strategy. And focus really works, but it requires, for someone that's ADHD, it requires some real discipline to say, and this is where I've got a president. He's the implementer. I'm the visionary. And Eric is his name. And Eric Church will say to me, yeah, this idea you've got, Brian, it's a good one, but I don't think the timing's right. Can we park that for 6 months? Can we park it for a year? Do we ever even want to talk about it again? And so he helps to focus me so that I don't endanger the company. Some of my ideas are really good ones, but the timing's not right. And some of them are really great and we should do right now. But he gets to be a good filter for that to really check in on me.
Brian, switching gears a little bit, one of the most common questions we're getting these days is around the threats and opportunities that AI presents for businesses and for entrepreneurs. I'd love to get your take on how you're seeing it within your businesses, and what are some of the big threats? What are the opportunities, and how do you think about implementing it?
Well, it might not surprise you in the little bit of time we've gotten to know each other that I don't see a lot of threats. I'm an opportunity guy. I'm a glass half full guy. I see a lot of opportunities with AI, but it's so new. I mean, it's changing. If we just look back a year or another year from there, like, man, I used to use ChatGPT and find out that it was wrong in 50% of the time, or like I was just like, okay, this is really cool, but it's not reliable. And now it's getting to the point where I'm like, wow, this is inspiring, exciting. I think there's opportunities, but I think it's a bit of a gold rush where people have to go, okay, let's crawl before we walk, before we run. Let's not just go, hey, we're an AI first company and just implement all these AI technologies. It's get to know it. Like our CTO has said to everyone in the company, it's your job, everyone in the company, to learn and understand the opportunities that are with AI and how it can work for you and how it can work for the business. We haven't taken a great deep dive into anything to say like, this is so game changing, we're going to lay off all our staff, none of that stuff, right? So I think it's a balance of how do we complement AI with the human connection. So I was at the big TED conference in Vancouver in March. I learned so much, 84 speakers, and most of them talked about at some point AI, and most of it was above my head, but I'm just like, wow, everybody's thinking about it. All these smart people are talking about it. It's going to be powerful. But let's not go too crazy and too quick on it, and just learn. But I think in my business, let's pick one of them at random, but 1-800-GOT-JUNK. Yes, there's going to be robots out there hauling junk one day, but I don't think that's in the next 5 to 10 years. I think AI is going to impact a lot of our systems and our software and our processes. But one thing I don't want us to ever lose is the HI, the human intelligence, the human interaction. And people love when we come by. They're just like, your guys are so great. They're so friendly. They're so helpful. And so we can use technology to augment some of the things we're doing. But how do we still have the human connection that's alive and well? I get frustrated with social media these days because I just go, how much of it is bots and AI writing stuff that's then getting read and commented on by AI? And so, I mean, right? I mean, it's kind of true, right? LinkedIn is going to quickly, or any of these, they're going to quickly turn into, bots having fun talking to bots. And so what's the good in that, right? Oh, well, look at all the shortcuts we get from having it write all our posts. And who do you think's reading those posts, right? So how do we keep a balance of it? I'm not anti-AI. I'm all about the opportunity side versus the threat. But how do we learn more and get the right balance of how to use it in a powerful way? What do you guys think? I'm curious what you guys think on AI and your thoughts.
I heard Sam Altman talking about like how different generations use ChatGPT. And so he was saying like, I guess millennials and boomers are kind of using it as a replacement to Google, right? And kind of searching through ChatGPT. And then kind of Gen Z and younger are using ChatGPT as like a life advisor. And that's how I've started to use it personally. It kind of crept up on me, and I would say I started using it just as a Google replacement. But like as a CEO in today's crazy world, most important decisions, I am asking ChatGPT for advice and guidance around it. And then we've used it, Neil, quite a bit on the customer service side, right? And customer engagement to be able to answer requests more quickly and to take a lot of the tedious rote work out of what our customer service agents do.
Yeah, I use it for all the same things you just mentioned, John, on the millennial side and the boomer side. And like I'm trying to do it all, and I'm enjoying learning, right? It's easy to ask ChatGPT, what do you know about me? What do you think of this plan? What do you think about this strategy? And there's no ego challenges, right? When you end up hearing from, you're not going to get mad at AI, right? You just kind of go, oh, and you can think about it and then ask more prompts and questions. So
I was actually in my YPO forum this morning. So we were talking through some of the AI challenges, and one of the forum mates had brought forth the icebreaker using ChatGPT, and when he started to read it, the other thing that jumped out was the tonality of things ends up being quite monotonous. Like it's all similar tonality of all of these posts, right? So you don't actually have much differentiation in how you're receiving the communication or how you're going to be communicating. So I think there's a little bit of like people want to shut off their brain. Like your brain is always trying to make you burn less calories and survive, right? So it's like, okay, well, if I can get ChatGPT to do the thinking and the work and the writing and everything, or whatever other AI tool, my life's going to be better. But we need to make sure that we're still using that human intelligence that you're talking about to make sure that the answer makes sense. It's right. It's contextual. It's personal. It's delivered in quality. But I think the opportunity is obviously quite big, and I do think it'll help simplify a lot of business processes, analysis, decisions. Like once you have the right kind of underlying infrastructure rebuilt for the AI world, everyone's going to have access to all of the information really, really quickly. And you kind of have, hopefully you can have much more decentralized decision-making to what we were talking about before with 100% information access, essentially. So that I'm excited about that future because we're very transparent we're a public company. We need to make sure that we're not sharing anything outside, but we're very transparent with our employees and our team members to make sure they have all the right information to make decisions at their levels, and being able to provide that on the tip of their fingers, I think is super exciting.
Yeah, I think human beings are innately lazy, right? We'd rather find an easier way, as you talked about. But like, let's not have AI take away the fun, right? It is fun to solve some problems, yes, with the help of AI, but like, I don't want AI drinking my red wine for me at night, right? Like, there's a human level to life that it's like, let's enjoy what we've got.
Awesome. For our last few minutes together, I just wanted to touch on Dragon's Den. So we've had a few guests on the show who have presented on Dragon's Den, entrepreneurs that have been able to pitch over the past few years, and they talked about their experience on that side of the den. But would love to hear a little bit about your experience on the other side of the den, and what motivated your interest to jump on the show, and how have things been going behind the scenes?
Yeah, so I'm in my second season. We just finished filming last May, 12 days, every single day for 10 hours. It's exhausting, but it's inspiring and invigorating. I mean, it's just amazing. I'm loving what I'm doing. The whole reason I chose to do it, and I can't believe they picked me. I mean, I remember interviewing with other dragons and names I can't mention, and I'm like, I have no chance. But somehow they picked me. I just fit what they were looking for. And it has been something that I chose to do because I wanted to inspire Canadian entrepreneurship. I believe in entrepreneurs. I believe in the difference we can make. I love sharing ideas, like the whole reason to do podcasts like this, I think on both sides, is share with other listeners the things that have worked and where we've gotten stuck and where we failed. And so to be able to do that on a bigger platform with Dragon's Den, it's been awesome. I hope they invite me back for a third season. We'll see how the second season airs. But it is really good people who are there for the right reasons. Like when I watch the interaction that happens on set, that of course, not all of it gets kept because you have an hour pitch that gets edited down into 7 minutes. But the people I meet, the stories I hear, the connections I get to have to people, it's good people on both sides. It's a good show.
I think it does inspire entrepreneurs and non-entrepreneurs, right? Like every Canadian knows about Dragon's Den. They've all watched an episode or a YouTube clip or whatever it is, and then they start to think like business people, and it's just an amazing like community that comes together through the show. So it's, I think it's one of the better platforms to get that inspiration vision.
Yeah, and it's one of those shows too that like kids say that we'll get people pitching who say, I was a kid watching this show. I grew up with this show, and now I'm here pitching, right? And it goes across generations. It's the longest running Canadian reality show, but it's pretty neat. Like these things survive, and the Shark Tank in the U.S. is part of the same franchise. You've got one in France. You've got one in Mexico, and it's like they inspire entrepreneurship, but they do teach people, and they become a part of the sort of culture and fabric of entrepreneurship in the country. So I'm honored to be on the panel.
Well, we love watching you on the show, and that pretty much wraps it up for today. Thanks so much, Brian, for spending the time chatting with us. And we will link in the show notes your book, your brands, ways to connect with you on social media. And we just really love this conversation today. Thank you so much, Brian.
Yeah, a lot of fun. If you guys are in Vancouver, come say hello. But always love connecting with entrepreneurs, and you guys have a great story yourself. I know this wasn't a part about your story, but I'd love to hear more about you guys the next time we connect.
Look forward to hanging out in person. Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Until next time, everyone. That was $100 Million Blueprint, and keep building.
That's all for today's episode of $100 Million Blueprint. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It really helps us spread the word to other entrepreneurs and business leaders who need to hear these stories.
Want more behind-the-scenes insights, exclusive content, or have a business question you want answered? Connect with us on LinkedIn to find out more.
Also, don't forget to subscribe and follow $100 Million Blueprint, and to share this episode with your network if you found it valuable, because we're all about growing together. Remember, building a business is tough, but with the right blueprint, you can scale authentically and sustainably.
Thanks again for listening. Keep pushing forward, and we'll see you next time on $100 Million Blueprint.